Authorities are working to identify the next of kin after a skeleton is discovered near Gateway. The Mesa County Sheriff's Office says the skeleton could be the answer to a missing persons case. It involves a Mesa County man who went missing more than 20 years ago. Authorities say a hiker discovered the remains Thursday near the John Brown Canyon Road off of Highway 141. It was partially inside of a car at the bottom of a canyon. Foul play was never suspected in the man's disappearance.
Meet Ronald Dale Vasey. Born 1922 in Omaha, Nebraska. Served in the U.S. Army Air Forces, a predecessor to the U.S. Air Force. As an airplane mechanic stationed in India during World War II. But he was also a husband and a father, and he was my grandfather. My grandpa's story is a complicated one, as you're about to see. And when I first saw this footage that you're seeing just a few years ago for the first time, it really blew my mind. Because this was not the story as it was told to me. This was not the image that was painted for me. For whatever reason, my mom had a different view of my grandfather, who, as you can see, is a very happy guy and seemed to have a pretty good time, a pretty good home life, pretty normal home life. But my mom tells the story differently. I will always remember Grandpa as the guy who ran cranes and put the top of the castle on at Disneyland. The guy who was so good at running cranes that he was paid to run them around the world. The guy who loved machines as much as he loved people. And he did love people. He loved his family for sure. Which is what makes it's so hard to understand and accept what happened. He taught me so much about life and about living it. And then in 1987, he disappeared. And it changed my life forever.
My name is Rhonda Leanne Vasey Easton, and Ronald Dale Vasey was my father. I was born in Omaha, Nebraska. My parents moved to Orange County, California when I was 5 years old. I lived there, grew up there until I was 26, and at that time I moved to Grand Junction, Colorado. For many years I was an elementary school teacher, and I'm retired now for several years. Well, my father was a very intelligent man, very talented. He was a mechanic. He could do electrical work. He could construct buildings. He was a very good crane operator. As a matter of fact, he helped build Disneyland. He was one of two men that ran cranes when the first original Disneyland was built. But he fell short of being a father. Maybe that's that generation, but He didn't know how to talk to us kids, and we kind of didn't have a very close relationship there. He was just there or not there. Really didn't know how to reach out to us, and he probably knew that we were angry at him for the way he treated our mother, and it wasn't very good. It wasn't totally dysfunctional, but at that time it was not a happy place to be. My parents were mismatched. They should never have gotten married. My mother was a devout Catholic to an obsession about being a Catholic and sinning, and my father was an atheist, and he was also an alcoholic, so between the two it was a constant battle. Well, my mother being a Catholic talked my father into letting us go to Catholic school. We went to St. Anne's and then Immaculate Heart of Mary. We were brought up with really good morals. My father, being an atheist, still had rules for us to follow, and that was good. He wasn't a prejudiced man. He was very intelligent. He believed in school. We were patriotic. One of the fun things we did, which is probably illegal now, was to hop in the car and follow fire trucks to see what was going on at the end of I just realized that. That's cool. That was one of our family activities. I think that we spent a lot of time driving around looking for my father at the bars. I don't know if you want this part, Justin, but or calling the bars to see if my dad was there, and it just could have been better. Yeah. My husband had a wonderful childhood, and it was totally different than mine. My mother was closer. She meant well, but she cried a lot. She was depressed a great deal of the time. She had several nervous breakdowns and was on Valium. So she was kind of numb, and I took over being the parent, and my sister to this day will tell you that I raised my brother and sister. I'm the oldest of 3 children. My brother, Ronald D. Vasey, was 3 years younger. He's passed away several years ago. My sister, Renee, is 6 years younger, and Renee and I are very close. When she feels hurt or pain, I feel the same, and actually we also sound the same. Our voice quality is the same. My sister and I are so alike that we have very little memory of our childhood, mostly negative things. We just basically remember arguments, my father being drunk and my mother crying. I don't know what else to say to that. I did go trick-or-treating, but I don't think my father was around much on holidays. I think he spent a lot of time at the bars when we should have been doing family things. I remember one Christmas, it was Christmas Eve, and my father came home drunk with a frozen turkey that had thawed by the time he got home, and my mother was crying, Merry Christmas, and we really didn't celebrate holidays. At the beginning of our living in California, my mother's brothers also moved there, and her sister, and we would have get-togethers, but then that kind of slowly dwindled away, so those celebrations were gone. Well, my father and another man, they were the only 2 crane operators that were chosen to help build the new the first Disneyland. And there might have been more in Orange County, but I remember being told by Gloria Peterson, she was the daughter of the other crane operator, that she has really a good grasp on their history. There weren't that many people as adept at what they were doing as my dad and her dad, and so they, along with a man called, they each had their oiler. He was the guy that assisted them, oiled the crane, helped with directing it. Can you imagine the old cranes they had then in those days than they do now? Oh my gosh. So Dad put the top of the Disneyland castle on. He put the jungle safari boats in, the elephants in. In fact, Gloria just sent me pictures of a crane lifting the elephants in the jungle safari. Dad met Walt Disney, so did Mr. Peterson. And during those times, I was like 6 and 7. And he didn't come home a lot. At that point, though, Walt Disney wanted them to finish Disneyland in a certain time. And so people were, according to Gloria, sleeping in tents at Disneyland's. But the wives and kids would bring them clothing, food. I don't know the whole story. Gloria would be the one to interview on that. She is really fascinating to listen to. And so at that point, he may not have been around a lot when I was that age. My sister was barely born because she's 6 years younger, and my brother was like 3. So, but they met Walt Disney. They brought him up in their crane to video all of the Disneylands being built. And then my husband and I were in Long Beach, California, visiting our daughter and her family. And Harry and I went to Knott's Berry Farm Chicken House, fried chicken dinner place that was really popular. And Harry does not like to wait in lines, so I waited in line while he walked around the part that was free. Until he decided it was time to come back. In the meantime, I'm standing there just having a fun discussion with the people around me. Like, I grew up in California. Did you? Yep, I grew up. I remember when Knott's Berry Farm was free and we used to go out there. All the teenagers used to hang out there, and it was the place to be. And I said, and then Disneyland was free at some point too. And my father was a crane operator at Disneyland. And I heard from this person, no, he wasn't, my father was. And I stopped, okay, I'm not a fighter. It kind of scared me. But then I said, but my father was, and we started talking. So in this small world, in a Knott's Berry Farm chicken dinner line, I meet the daughter of the other crane operator. And that was quite fascinating. And since then, she sent photos, a lot of information on our fathers growing up. Her and her father, they were more of a less dysfunctional family, a good family, I think. And they liked our dad. And I told her, well, gee, you saw a different guy than we did. But he built a Boy Scout building for her family because the kids were in Boy Scouts. He was just a superhero in some ways to them, which was not the father that I saw. But it was quite a quinky-dink that we met in the Knott's Berry Farm chicken dinner line.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he used to tell visitors, like the family from Nebraska and other people, as we'd drive around and show them the area, he'd say, I've got money in that bank, I've got money in that bank, and that bank. And it was because whenever he helped build the bank and the cement was still wet, he would throw coins into the cement. So that's how he got money in the banks. But it was kind of funny. Harry and I and you went to Gunnison, to Western State College, to complete a principalship degree for Harry, who eventually became a principal. And we loved being in Gunnison. It was cooler than here, and we had a good time. And when we came home on August 6th, I called my mom and told her we're home from college, and we had to start getting ready to start school or whatever. And we told her we were home, so she knew we were home, and I helped my mom and dad a lot. We did. Harry was really good too. And she told, Dad asked, my mother was in the bathroom, and my dad said to her through the bathroom door, "Audrey, are the kids home?" And she said yes. And she was not able to get out of the bathroom quick enough. He said, "I'm going to fill the car up with gas," because they had a doctor appointment the next day. The problem and odd thing about that was that he hadn't driven for a while because of his cancer. He had cancer of the lungs. He had already had a third of his lungs removed. He was on strong medication. He couldn't and wouldn't really supposed to drink or smoke, but he decided that he told Mom that he was going out to get gasoline for the car, and he never came back. So a few hours later, not very long, because my mom knew that he shouldn't have been out driving in the first place, and she couldn't stop him from going. So she called us, and Harry and I immediately went over to be with Mom and you, to be with Mom and to talk and discuss where he could have been. I think Harry probably drove around to the local bar that Dad liked to go to, asked questions of the people there. They hadn't seen Dad, which that's exactly what we thought where he went after he got gas. He wasn't there. And then the evening drug on, and we finally called the police and told them our concerns and thoughts that he had tried to commit suicide before because of his quality of life was down to nothing, and he tried to overdose a few months before and was very angry at my mom and me for calling an ambulance and saving his life. You were very young, and the sad thing was we left you in the car and it was in a cul-de-sac in a trailer, a mobile home unit, and so there wasn't a whole lot of room. And because I didn't want you to see when my father tried to commit suicide the first time, all that was going on with Grandpa, and or be in the midst of it, but I needed to go be with my mother, and we left you in the car, which we've done a couple times, like in New York, Washington, D.C., when we left you at the car. Anyway.
Did we get that? Yeah, we got it.
While the ambulance came, the police came, and we saved his life, more or less. At that point, he had told my very best friend Nita that the next time he tried this, he wasn't going to get caught. So months later, he didn't get caught. He disappeared. Harry went up with a helicopter or airplane twice over the valley. We went to junkyards, to salvage yards. I went to Rabbit Valley and drove around. We really searched and searched. We searched storage units. We thought maybe he had driven into a storage unit. He just completely disappeared. We tried everything, and for years afterwards, I would drive by a junkyard and look for his car. Maybe he had gone there, driven in there, and offed himself there, but to no avail. And then finally, 26 years later, my best friend, who had moved to New York years before I got the call, before Dad was found, called me and told me and asked me, "Was that your dad in the paper?" In the meantime, I had been having a party for your daughter Peyton. It was a princess fairy party, and we were having a good time, little girls running all over, and I get this call from my girlfriend Nita in New York, and she tells me that my father was found, and I had no clue. And so she said, "Did you read the paper?" And I couldn't find the paper. And I went into Harry's bedroom, and by the way, he had read the paper and gone off golfing, which was a clear indication Harry has dementia, and it was the start of his dementia. He would have known in his right mind that was my father and your grandfather. He would have known it, but he put the paper down and went golfing with no thought to telling me. And so I had to be told by my best friend from New York, whose daughter called her and told her about the finding of my dad. So it was really just a bizarre day. And you and Dad and I, we went down to the sheriff's department after the party or the next day and tried to get some information. We had to wait. Then we were able to see them the next day, and didn't we? And talk to.
I think the first time you went on your own?
Dad and I,
Yeah, I think
Harry
it
and I
might be
did.
your dad.
Probably. I can see us, it was a Saturday or a Sunday, and I can see us standing outside the sheriff's department, but it was closed for the weekend.
I may have gone with you, but
Maybe you didn't. Maybe you didn't. Maybe it was just Dad.
do you have anything to add or any questions for me?
I think that his fear of his invention and big oil companies, it's something to think about, it's something to consider, but you also have to consider the part that he was in so much pain that, and the way he committed suicide was to drive off. We haven't talked about the place.
That's true, yeah.
Was to go up a hill in Glade Park, not a hill, and turn around and step on it and fly off, what would you call it, where we were, into a ravine. And I just hope he went quickly, because the position of his body when they found him kind of looked like he was, well, maybe he was thrown out, I don't know. But that very thought, that leads me to believe in euthanasia, because my father could have chosen in a different world to die surrounded by his family and with the music he loved, country and western, smoking his last cigarette, drinking his last beer, and he could have said goodbye in a far better way than he had to. So I'm really glad the laws have changed, are changing nowadays for us, because it must have been a lonely end of life for him. I can't imagine anything worse than being in so much pain that you leave your family, your loved grandson behind, to end it all by flying off into a ravine. With the way it ended, I can't imagine the situation being helped along by Big Oil or anybody, because Dad, I think he had a plan because of what he said before, and I think he chose to end it when he knew that we were home from college and there to take care of your grandma, my mom, and I don't think that in all that time, had they wanted to get rid of Dad, they would have waited till then. I think they would have done it in earlier years.
Like in this era with Donald Trump, this isn't about Trump, but there's the whole concept of capture and kill, where a media outlet will buy a story and then never publish it to make it go away. What if it was something like that, where they didn't want him killed, but they suppressed his invention long enough and pretended that it was nothing long enough for him to die, and maybe knowing of his cancer diagnosis, let him die, and then, so, I mean, like, because essentially, if we choose to believe the wholesome, common story, it's the suicide, it was the pain, then essentially we're accepting the idea that his invention was ultimately a nothing burger. It didn't go anywhere. The prototype failed, and they all 12 of those people just walked away from it. Apparently decided it wasn't worth anything.
Well, what can I say? That's 12 people that only had 1/12 of the invention, that didn't maybe know the rest of the group, and I don't know what Grandpa, my dad, planned to get it all back together. I don't know if he even thought of it in his pain in later years.
Yeah.
He believed in it enough to say that I want Justin to get this when I go, but he didn't help us out by giving us more information, so.
Yeah, and it was pretty limited what was inside of it. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you. I'm sorry.
I love you, Justin.
Thank you.
You're welcome, honey.
It means a lot.
Good. Maybe it'll find closure for you.
Call me Abraham, if you don't mind. That's my only request as I reach my dying time. I've known wretchedness that words can't tell. I've seen the darkest hell when I looked into myself. I've done things you can't forgive. I turned from your grace when you tried to give me sight. Now I pray your grace you give. May I pass through the night with an untroubled mind. May you never know what you will find in a concrete prison cell on the execution line. All the wickedness that ever was is living in your heart and running in your blood. I've done things you can't forgive. I turned from your grace when you tried to give me sight. Now I pray your grace you give. May I pass through the night with an untroubled mind. Turned from your grace when you tried to give me sight. Now I pray your grace you give. May I pass through the night with an untroubled mind. May I pass through the night with an untroubled mind.